Hello there. It's Jeff, otherwise known as Brendan Beefish. I am going to be answering some of your questions about the Blood of the Conqueror series tonight. Um, going to try to do this in 15 minutes, so I won't be wasting your time or my time, although I will say that tonight the beer of the night is called Duckpin. Duckpin is a Baltimore original. It's really good if you like IPAs. It's just a really good beer altogether. Also, I have a double duck pin as my second beer. If I can make it through this beer, then I'm going to go to this beer. All right, good to go. All right. So today I released the first essay of the series, or excuse me, the sixth essay of the series. My God, it's been so many damn parts of Blood of the Conqueror, Part 6, Friends in the Reach. And I figured I would answer some questions that people might want to see answered in the format that in a video format. So here goes. Open up my document here. The first question comes from Stevie from Facebook, and she says, "My question: exactly how awesome do you think I am?" Really awesome, Stevie. You are very, very awesome. So awesome, in fact, that I dedicate this sip to you. All right. Second question. Andrew from Facebook asks, "I always thought there was a chance for House Rowan, but I never would have thought House Tyler would be a friend in the Reach. How does Laswell Peak know about the propensity to defect?" Well, it's a good question. He really doesn't know that Tarly and Rowan are going to defect. What Laswell Peak is calling to is to the old Blackfire alliances from the Reach. Think about House Peak, for instance, or House Strickland, houses that rose with the Black Dragon during the first Blackfire Rebellion and continue to rise time and again, like in this second aborted Blackfire Rebellion. Now, the thing is that the Tarleys and the Rowans were not Blackfire supporters historically. What they were was Red Dragon supporters. And as a Red Dragon supporter, the Tarleys and the Rowans aren't going to be backing Aegon because of, anything to do with the Black Dragon, but everything to do with the Red Dragon. For instance, House Rowan, Mathis Rowan himself, is a pretty much a staunch Red Dragon Targaryen backer. He followed his liege lord to Storm's End. He fought alongside of the Tyrells in some capacity at the Battle of Ashford a little bit before the Siege of Storm's End. And he was horrified by when Tywin Lannister presented the bodies, or excuse me, when Tywin Lannister blame shifted the deaths of Elia Martell and her children onto the mountain and said that, we'll bring justice to them in a storm of swords. So he's in it because he's probably in it for more of a moral reason than anything else. The Tarleys, on the other hand, while they did support the Red Dragon and House Targaryen, they didn't really do so out of a sense of purpose or a sense of morality necessarily. House Tarley's turn as a friend in the Reach is more based on opportunity, and the opportunity that is to like stick it to the Tyrells, especially Mace Tyrell. Mace Tyrell has time after time after time stolen the glory that was Randall Tarley's. And then he's also just fucked Randall Tarley, or excuse me, Mace Tyrell has fucked Randall Tarley out of Brightwater Keep, which was his to have, but he didn't have it, so it's a very good opportunity for the Tarleys to make the turn towards Aegon. So that's why I think those two houses in particular will be supporters. Now, are there any there is a House Peak that exists in some fashion in the Reach. The current Lord is married to a Lannister. It's very possible that the Peaks will turn towards Aegon, though really I can't imagine that they would bring much to the fore, so to speak. So we're looking at mostly Red Dragon Targaryen loyalists who are going to be joining up with Aegon, and they're primarily going to be doing it through John Connington, who's aware of all of the friends of House Targaryen because he was the battle commander for the Targaryens very briefly and handed the king. So thanks for the question, Andrew. Rob from WordPress asks, "Say this gambit works and Aegon sits the Iron Throne with the help of Doran, Dany, or whoever. How would Rowan, Tarly, and others be rewarded? Rowan becomes Lord Paramount of the Reach and Tarly takes Brightwater Keep? Question mark. Are the Tyrells disposed of Highgarden itself? And if so, who gets that awesome prize?" Very good question. I think from the outset, I think that the Tarleys are going to take Brightwater Keep, or that Aegon will grant Brightwater Keep to Randall Tarley through his wife, because his wife Melissa is a Florent by birth, so she is by legal rights, she is the inheritor of Brightwater Keep, and that was stolen from them by the Tyrells at the start of A Storm of Swords. Um, how would Rowan be rewarded? Yeah, he could be the Lord Paramount of the Reach, possibly. I mean, the Rowans, alongside of the Tarleys and the Florins and others, have a stronger tie to the Gardner Kings directly, so they might press that claim that way. And given that they're going to be Aegon's first supporters in the Winds of Winter, it's possible that he becomes the Lord Paramount of the Reach and maybe even takes Highgarden itself. It's really hard to say right now. One of the things is that de jure, meaning that like officially, yeah, maybe Rowan will take the castle, but at the same time, Aegon really doesn't have any presence out in the West yet. Maybe he will in the Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring, maybe not. But Rowan has the ability to be named that, but he'll have to contest with Garland and Willis Tyrell, which are out west right now fighting the Ironborn. So I would say that perhaps he'll be granted Highgarden. I don't imagine that he's going to actually stay in there for very long, if at all. So thanks for the question, Rob. Felix from WordPress asks, I wonder how the Hightowers will act. I suppose they'll be occupied by the Ironborn. Tarly seems like he'll turn against the Tyrells. I don't think Mace will make it through the series. Maybe Randall will defeat him in battle, and Lord Rowan will join. And Lord Rowan joining them would explain how they took Storm's End. So a little bit of that gets into the next part of the series, which I won't really say too much about. But yeah, I think Lord Mace Tyrell is in mortal peril, and he doesn't even know it yet. How the Hightowers will act. So the big thing about the Hightowers right now is that they're in the middle of trying to fight off the Ironborn. The Ironborn are knocking on the gates of Old Town by the end of A Feast for Crows. So the Hightowers are pretty much occupied for the moment. Now, historically, the Hightowers have been fence sitters, basically looking for the side to pick. They had split their loyalties during the Blackfire Rebellions, or at least the first one, and they had kind of done the same thing where they had stayed on the sidelines and hoped to make it out of any conflict alive. With Aegon joining up, or with Aegon taking King's Landing, it's very possible that Hightowers will eventually side with Aegon. But right now, you have to think about the Hightowers are married into House Tyrell. Marjorie, Garland, and Willis, as well as Loras, are all the sons and daughter of a Hightower out of Allery Hightower. So the current Lord of Hightower, Leighton, he's the grandfather of the current Queen of Westeros, or I guess the Queen of Westeros, depending on if you take Cersei's interpretation or not. So he doesn't really have any family reason to join up with Aegon. Now, maybe if Marjorie dies, or if there's another turn at some point, that yes, the Hightowers will join up, but I don't think it's going to happen immediately in the Winds of Winter. I think it's more going to happen possibly in the Dream of Spring. Or perhaps the Hightowers will even join up with Daenerys when she finally arrives in Westeros. So thanks for the question. Really good question. Sir Theodred of Pennytree from WordPress asks, do we know how many soldiers are currently marching against Aegon? And how many men will Aegon have at his disposal to fight this battle, including Rowan's men if they join him? So, and I also take the next question, which is also from WordPress, which is from Juan, which he asks, why do you think Randall Tarly would have 20,000 soldiers? I believe Hornhill could only field 2,000 or 3,000. Okay. The Golden Company has 10,000 soldiers in total that they land in Westeros with. Right now, they're kind of spread out all over the Stormlands, the Narrow Sea, and the Stepstones. The issue is going to be that for them to win, they have to gain more swords. Mathis Rowan maybe has 2,000, maybe 3,000 men outside of Storm's End, and that's just a guess that they want to keep a kind of 5 or 10 to 1 superiority over the garrison in Storm's End, which has 200 or 300 soldiers, depending. So I would say maybe 1,500 at the minimum, maybe 3,000 at the maximum is what Mathis Rowan has in his battle. The thing is that, and this is a point that Nina brought up while we were doing the editing process for this, is that Rowan's troops will likely be rested. The Golden Company will have already been at battle at Griffin's Roost, Storm's End, and some of them have also been engaged in other battles as well along the coast of the Stormlands. So these are rested troops, and they will have an advantage that way, especially against any army that might be marching on them from King's Landing, which is something that we know from Ariane's second chapter, is that the Tyrells dispatched an army to take care of Aegon. So that's a good thing for Aegon to have, is those 1,500 to 3,000 soldiers. It's a significant force. Increases the number of soldiers that Aegon will have. Now, where I got the Randall Tarly has 20,000 soldiers from, um, it's kind of it's an estimated guess. The reason why I say it's 20,000 is because of the following things. One, we know the Tyrells have 100,000 men in the field at the start of a Clash of Kings. Two, we know that Garland Tyrell takes about 30,000 soldiers back to the Reach to take Brightwater Keep, and then they eventually get redeployed to fight the Ironborn. Hornhill itself, yeah, they can probably only field 2,000 or 3,000, but Randall Tarley is the commander of a combined army of Reachmen and Stormlanders. Now, the Stormlanders is significant. I don't think that that Stannis lost 15,000 men in the Battle of the Blackwater. Those seem like pretty numbers that don't really gel with what we know from historical battles. What we do know is that um, the Stormlanders, many Stormlords, and many of their knights as well, joined up with Joffrey afterwards, and they were incorporated into Randall Tarley's army. And the reason why we know this is that in A Feast for Crows, as Brienne passes through Maidenpool, she sees the banners of many Stormlanders who have fought at the Battle of Duskendale in the place that they're buried. So we know that that Randall Tarley has a significant number of troops, but they're not just Reachmen, they're also Stormlanders as well. Which kind of brings up an interesting side point, which is that the Stormlanders serving under Randall Tarley will likely agitate for Tarley to turn towards Aegon, especially if their homes and livelihoods are threatened back home. And there's also the fact that maybe these dudes want to get a little vengeance on the Lannisters that beat them at the Battle of the Blackwater. 20,000 soldiers, again, it's a guess. I'm guessing that Randall Tarley had 20,000. If you recall from A Storm of Swords, Robb Stark says that he lost a third of his foot against at Duskendale, and you want to give Randall Tarley the advantage here because I believe it said at some point that he had more troops than Robert Glover and the other guy's name is kind of escaping my memory when he fought against them. They took heavy casualties as well, so you would think that he probably had maybe 20,000, maybe it's 15,000. Regardless, it's a significant number of troops, and they are concentrated under one commander as opposed to the Tyrells, which have dispatched half of their army back to the Reach. So anyways, thanks for the questions, Juan and Theodred and Pettytree. Nick asks, is Connington supposed to sound Russian or Scottish? It whatever is your heart's desire. He could sound both. I don't mind. I was just kind of doing accents for fun. You also have to know that this was about 2:30 in the morning when I was recording a lot of this stuff, so it didn't. The accents were not consistent. It's very much like Sean Connery's accent, or rather, excuse me, Kevin Costner's accent from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where it kind of goes from Middle American to English to a little bit of Irish to Middle American again. I'm not good with accents. I'm not a voice actor by training. I did the best I could. I hope you enjoyed it all the same. So thanks, Nick. Kevin Timba from WordPress asks, you've done a great job of gaming out who Aegon's quote-unquote friends are. What about Doran Martell's we still have friends comment? Who told Doran Martell about the planned half-man, half-man assault on the Dornish party in the Kingswood? And how was this information conveyed? To be honest, I don't have a good answer for this. I suspect that Varys played some sort of role in conveying the information to Doran, but I don't know that Doran Martell is aware who his benefactor is at the court. He says at one point that he has, friends. We still have friends in the court. Comment that he makes that you referenced, Kevin, but I don't know whether that's Varys specifically. I would guess it's Varys in some way, and we do know that this came out that Cersei was going to plan this. For a while, I was kind of under the impression that it was just a fancy in Doran Martell's mind to try and get the Sand Snakes united behind him as some sort of ploy. But the reality is that Cersei makes a comment to Balon Swan in A Feast for Crows where she pulls him aside for another mission. Now, here's the thing. Cersei and Balon Swan, and I just thought about this, so bear with me. Cersei and Balon Swan go off to their separate ways, and it's left off page what happens. But really, who would possibly know about that besides Varys? Because Varys has his little birds in the walls itself listening into each conversation and recording it. So you have to think it's Varys who got hold of the information and conveyed it to Doran Martell in some way. Maybe Doran Martell is in communication openly with Varys in some way, but I don't know for sure. But I'm pretty sure it was Varys who found out the information about the half man assault on the Dornish party. How the information was conveyed, that I'm not sure about. It could have been a bird, it could have been a messenger. Um, I would guess it would probably be a messenger, given that the rookery, until the end of A Dance with Dragons, is controlled by Grandmaster Purcell and any other macers that are working for him, unless there's some sort of macer that's co-opted, but that's not been in evidence yet. So really good question, and you actually generated kind of a thought about that. So appreciate the question, Kevin. Azor Davos from Reddit asks, I've been looking forward to this. The two parts that you cut out from this, the one about the Turncloak and the War of the Dragons, do you plan to do future essays on those? The Turncloak, I would like to do an essay on. I think it's a really fascinating topic. Um, the issue with both of those essays is that the Turncloak can work as a standalone essay. It doesn't have really much to do with the topics that I'm trying to cover in this essay series necessarily. I mean, it does have some interesting aspects about it, and that are all about Aegon, and Daenerys as well. But I can't really say that it's specifically about what we're going to be, what I really want to cover, which is, the next step is going to be a battle, and then we have the Dornish and the Faith Militant, and the final confrontation between the dragons and the Lannisters and the Tyrells and King's Landing. So I'm not sure about that, when that's going to come out. It'll probably come out after the series is done or complete. I think you'll enjoy it, but we'll see. As for the War of the Dragons, I really wanted to do that one. The problem that I found as I was doing research is that it becomes very speculative. We're just not, I feel, and you'll other people will not feel this way, that there's too little information to really talk about it. What I try to do when I write analysis is that I try to write it in the vein of um, stuff that we can talk about. Even if it's speculative analysis, there has to be enough backing in the books to talk about that. Now, when I was originally starting the research, what I was doing for the War of the Dragons thing was that I was trying to tie it together with George R. R. Martin saying there's going to be a second Dance of the Dragons, and tie that to the first Dance of the Dragons, which is all about air-to-air dragon combat. I do think that Aegon and Daenerys are going to be enemies in A Dream of Spring. I don't think that Daenerys is actually going to arrive in Westeros until the start of A Dream of Spring. But I don't know that I don't know that I have enough information yet. Now, other people will say, no, by God, I go ahead and do it. But for me, I feel like I have to have more textual data in order to analyze it and do the research on it. So I appreciate the question. Not sure I'm really going to do the War of the Dragons, though it's always possible that something might pique my interest in the future. Hamfast42 and Yezin in real life from Reddit asked, and I'm just going to read Hamfast's question, but it's very similar to Yezin's question. I'm curious how the show will play this out. They have cast Sam's brother, so they may have some kind of Tarly betrayal of the Lannister Tyrell regime. If I recall correctly, show Robert claims his first kill was some Tarly boy, so they set up some beef. Yeah, I'm not sure how the show's really going to do that either. The thing about the show is that they've skipped over the Aegon plot, in my opinion, not necessarily a subplot. It's going to be very central to the Winds of Winter, at least because it's going to revolve around characters like Cersei, Arianne, John Connington, and possibly others as well, Jaime Lannister maybe. But I don't know that the show is really going to focus on that. I think that the conflict is mostly going to be between the Faith Militant and the Tyrells and the Lannisters specifically, and the Lannister-Tyrell plot coinciding, with eventually maybe possibly, and this is just spitballing here, the Faith Militant backing Daenerys when she arrives in Westeros in order to do that piece. But I just don't. I don't feel like I know enough about the direction of the show to necessarily do that. It could be that Robert claims his first. Yeah, Robert does claim his first kill was some Tarly boy. So they have set up some beef between Randall Tarly, who they have cast for season 6, and the current regime. I'm just not sure that Aegon's really going to feature at all. I think it's going to be more. Aegon's definitely not going to feature at all. I just don't know how they're going to parlay that that conflict into season 6 and 7 of Game of Thrones. I imagine it's more going to be transferred onto Daenerys and direct conflict between the Faith Militant and the Lannisters and the Tyrells, and the Lannisters and Tyrells will have their own conflict. So appreciate the questions, Hamfast and Yezin. And yeah, final question. This one comes from Andrew from Facebook. He asks, so Cersei demands a trial by combat. Since the Faith is technically the claimant in this case, can they choose a trial of 7 like Prince Arion did after Dunk chose trial by combat in the Hedge Knight? My essay series did not have anything to do with the Cersei's upcoming trial by combat, but I'm always happy to take this question. I don't think it's going to be a trial by 7. I don't think that Martin has really telegraphed that for Cersei's trial. I think that it's going to be the Mountain as in the form of Sir Robert Strong against another combatant. Loras Tyrell seems like or excuse me, not Loras Tyrell, but rather there's a couple folks that could fulfill the role. Lancel Lannister is probably at the top of my pick. Although there's also Theodred, or I think his name's Theodred, and you also have the Sir Bonifer Hasty as well. All these guys are dedicated their lives to the faith, and they seem like they might be the challenger for against Robert Strong. I just don't know that a trial by 7 is actually going to be what's going to come out in the Winds of Winter or in Game of Thrones season 6. I think that might be a little bit too unwieldy, and it might be just playing a little bit too much too tight. Because what makes the Hedge Knight really cool is that trial by 7. Like, that's the focal point of that novella. And is it possible that this might be what George R. R. Martin decides to recreate in The Winds of Winter? Certainly. I think that's certainly possible. Do I think it's likely? I don't. I think that it's going to be Sir Robert Strong versus someone else. In fact, I would have a hard time picking out 7 on 7 for Cersei versus the Faith. I mean, Cersei has what? Sir Robert Strong and Qyburn by the end of A Dance of Dragons are the only people that are really backing her. So I don't see that happening. I mean, it sounds nice and fun, but I think it's more going to be Robert Strong versus Lancel Lannister, most likely, is my guess. So appreciate the question, though. It's a cool question. It's a cool concept. I like people that think about the books and try and connect things from the novellas and the histories to the main series. And that's all I have for questions right now. I appreciate everyone listening and tuning in to this. I know it's short, but I guess it's 22 minutes. I guess it's not that short, but I really appreciate everyone tuning in and hanging out in my kitchen for a little while and enjoying this beer with me. And I never got to my second beer. It's really sad. I guess I need like a co-partner or something like that so I can drink while the other person talks. So anyways, really appreciate you guys tuning in. And keep the questions coming on Facebook or Reddit or WordPress or other things like that, and I'll answer them in a more text form. So thanks very much. Take care. Bye.